You're listening to the Black Minds Matters podcast in association with WCEN. Hey, what's good? My name is Peaks, and you are listening to the Black Minds Matters podcast in association with WCEN. I am joined with
Mr. X. What's good, everybody? Hope everyone's doing well.
So lovely. So if you're just joining us, we are the Black Minds Matters podcast, and we are doing this podcast show to keep everybody informed about what's going on, and we're having a diversity of various voices from within the younger communities. People we're going to be speaking to are, students. If you're into the creative arts, you're in work, you're unemployed. There's a lot going on just now. We're just trying to get an idea of what's working, what's not, people who can share and contribute to their ideas and keep people uplifted and inspired about what's going on during this global pandemic. The UK is on lockdown, slowly coming out of it now, so we're just gaining all the wisdom and experience from everybody who's gone through it. So on today's podcast, we are going to be speaking to Jess. She is an award-winning best faith-based poet. She is a poet and a student at the GuildHall School of Music and Drama, studying performance and creative enterprise. She's from Essex, 28 years old, and she does spoken word and faith-based poetry. So Jess, are you there?
I am here.
Hey girl, how are you today?
I am well, thank you.
How you doing, Jess? You all good?
I am all good.
Yes.
All right, lovely. So again, I've just given everybody a wee briefer, just a little bit of history about the fact that you're a student and you're a poetry award-winning best faith-based poet as well. So if you can just give us a wee bit of history from your point of view, what it is that you're doing, kind of growing up, maybe a little bit of history about your heritage, and then just up to just before this lockdown thing happened.
Okay, so like some of you don't know my name, although it's probably in the name. My name is Jessica, aka Poetess Jess. I'm a spoken word artist, as it is said. I'm 28 years old. My heritage is Caribbean, Jamaican, St. Lucian, and Dominican. What can I say about myself? Well, I could say that from a very young age, I've always been creative. So I would say from the age of 8, I was plaiting hair.
Mm-hmm.
And I would do hair, and I always had a dream to sort of do hair. And then years went by, and I just thought, no, this is actually very long. So poetry wasn't really in the equation as yet, but I did know that around that age, I would always find myself writing, but I would just rewrite songs, or it was more like church songs, because I'm a faith-based Christian poet, so I just rewrite songs in books. I never understood why I would do it. I don't know if I just like to see handwriting, because I had a thing about handwriting. I didn't know why. And I think as time went on and I got into, I'd say, secondary school, in that time there was grime music, and grime music was such an influence in the UK, especially because the artists that done grime music, they were just a representation of normal people that we saw every day. So it wasn't like Beyonce or Justin Timberlake or a famous star that you couldn't see, or you could only see on your TV. These are people that we sort of grew up with. They were in the neighborhood. They were in ends, should we say? So grime music had a real influence. And I remember in school, what the boys would do was they would all spit bars on an instrumental. So lunchtime, I don't know, at back in the day, it was like Pied Piper, Coyote,
Mm-hmm.
Ghetto Coyote, and they had these instrumentals, and the boys would spit bars on the instrumentals. Break time, they would come together. Everyone would have their lyrics ready, and they would come together, huddle in a circle, and they would just spit bars. And I found that so fascinating. I found that I was like, oh my gosh, like that's something that I actually want to do, because back then you never really saw girls do it. You only saw guys, really, boys come together and do it. So I wanted to do it. Prior to that, going back to the grime artist, a grime, I am one of my cousins. My cousin's Kano. So I was
I'll
also,
see.
yeah,
I will talk
I
about that
was
later.
I was also influenced by that as well. And I remember it was such a big deal. To me, it was obviously when someone's your family and you see them all the time, like it's not a big deal. To me, it wasn't a big deal. But I remember one time when I was in school and we were having a show, and no one believes that Kano was my cousin. And I just thought, can't famous people or uprising stars have family? Are they not allowed to? I didn't understand it. And I remember we had a show, like a talent show, and he came. And when he came, like I went up to him and I was just talking to him like normal, and everyone was just shocked, like, "Oh my days, oh my days!" And I was thinking, "What is wrong with you people?" Sort of thing. People were
What
like,
was
"Oh
he
my
there
gosh,
to
that's..."
support you at an
No,
event? Oh,
he was performing. He came to perform. We had, I
okay.
don't know, I think, because I think at the time I think I was in like year 8, and I believe the older years were putting on a show for the school. So he came as a guest artist, and I was just like, okay. I to me it was nothing, but to everybody else it was such a big deal. So I was always just influenced by that, and I really wanted to be like, yeah, I'm gonna do this thing. And I remember um one Ghetto Coyote had a famous instrumental that everyone was just on at the time, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And I remember I wrote some stuff, and I practiced. And I remember that I was like, this is fast forwarding. I was this probably in year 10, year 9, year 10. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to jump on. I'm going to jump on. I'm going to jump on. And I remember I jumped on and it flopped.
Oh gosh.
Oh.
It flopped 100%. It went absolutely wrong. And I was just like,
What
nah,
happened?
nah. To like, this is not me. This is not this. No, I was so upset. And when people obviously they have big expectations, because one, like, you're Kano's cousin, so you must be able to come with something.
Yeah, of course.
And like you've been hyping it and it just flops. You're like, jeez.
So what
And it
was it,
flopped.
nerves or was it you
I,
went blank?
I just couldn't. Do you know what? I don't know if I just couldn't do it on beat. It just, I
Wow.
don't know if it was nerves. I couldn't tell you if it was nerves or what, but it just didn't work out. And from then I was just like, nah, it is not happening. And I remember I went and I spoke with my friend and I told her like, yeah, this is what happened. And she was laughing and I was like, you're not supposed to laugh. You're actually meant to have my back. And I remember later on that day, she sent me a YouTube link, and the YouTube link was of these now Poets in Autumn. At the time, it was P4CM,
Same.
Poets for Christ movement or Passion for Christ movement, and they were actually American spoken word artists, but it was spoken word, and this is the first time I had ever come in encounter with like spoken word. And they were doing spoken word, or they were like rapping, but no instrument, no, like it was a cappella. And I was just like, that is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think from then I just started to do things a cappella, because I just knew doing something on a beat, it was not for me. So with that being said, I started doing things a cappella, and also in the church, because not that I didn't grow up in church, but growing up I went to church a lot. I would go with my nan, um or my mum and my dad got saved in the early 2000s, and I would go, and you never really saw poetry in that sense. Like people would read from like Proverbs or Psalms, like, but it was never you never ever saw people coming out to step up and do poetry. So I always didn't, in a way, thought it wasn't really a thing as such. I just thought maybe it's just a thing that I'm doing myself. And when I would be around young people, people would like, again, they would go be on this grime thing, like Christian grime, but it was never poetry. So I never ever thought it really had a place other than just within myself. So I never really looked up on other poets. I just really sort of just wrote for myself, or wrote what I thought, because I'm a very observant person. So when I go places, I just observe, and I can get inspiration just by looking around and how I feel, sort of thing. So going to church, and not seeing it was something, was like, okay. And I remember it was a youth service, and I just simply asked if I could just, do a spoken word, and they were like, yeah. And I done one, and it was like, whoa, wow, wow. People were just like, wow, wow. So I at the time, well, not obviously because of a lack of knowledge, I just thought, yeah, I'm the only one on this thing. Nobody's doing it. Like, nobody's doing spoken word. But at the same time, it's discouraging because you don't really have somebody to relate to. You can't really be like, oh, what do you think of this? Especially when you're around people at that time. People were in the church. It's like they wanted to be like pastors, preachers, or they were on grime. So when you're doing something that's different to everybody else, it's very hard to kind of get critical feedback, for one, and it's also discouraging because you feel like you're by yourself or on your own. So yeah, but I persevered, I pressed, I kept going. And it wasn't a thing where I made up in my mind, oh, I want to be a spoken word artist. I just saw it as a hobby. I didn't write knowing that I'm going to be a poetess Jess, or this is what I'm going to take up full time, or this is what I'm going to go to uni for. I just wrote as a hobby. It was something that I know that I could do. So like I always done hair, I thought, okay, let me invest in this hair thing. And I remember I started doing mobile hair. So I'd go to people's houses, I'd do their hair, but that is not what I really wanted to do. I went and I thought maybe I want to become a journalist because I liked writing. So I remember I went to Lambeth College in Clapham, and I done that NCTJ journalism course, and I learned shorthand. I learned all of that, how to edit, sub edit, and all of that. And that wasn't what I wanted to do. So I felt like I spent a lot of time wasting time because I was trying to find out what is it that I'm really passionate about. Because I didn't want to do one thing I didn't want to do was be older and work in retail, or work for somebody else, do a straight 9 to 5. I didn't want that life. But in the meantime, I had to do the 9 to 5. I had to work in like Primark
Yeah, we all
and
have to do.
Marks and Spencers because I
On the
needed
journey
money.
finding what we're doing.
Yeah, so I had to do those jobs, but I still felt like I was wasting time because I wasn't really invested in me. Um, Up until what happened? What? Oh, so for those of you, Tanya, that she's part of Black Minds Matter.
Yes.
So I came in contact with Tanya, I would say, in 2012. She came to do a project, um, as part of part of the church, and a youth alpha project. And Tanya is a great creative, so she's down with all the drama. And when I first met Tanya, like I instantly clicked, like, yeah, this woman, boom, because I'm a creative person, so I liked drama, I liked singing, I liked to dance. And prior to me doing poetry in here, I just liked being creative. I liked doing creative things. And so she came and she done a couple of things with the young people in my church. And I remember at that time I had applied in 2012. I had applied for Camp America, and I got through. So we spoke about, Camp America and everything. And I remember I went to America for a couple of months, and I came back, and I met people out there. So I was always in and out of America from 2012 to 2016. But every time I came back to the UK, I would link up with Tanya, and Tanya had this ministry called Tia, the Inner Attitude,
Yeah.
and I became a part of Tia. And Tia was back then, it isn't what it is now. So back then it was more, the overall theme and was the same, but it was more, to me, it was like just being creative and investing in your actual creative gift. And that's something that Tanya really pushed within the tier, was like your gifting. What is your gift? What do you actually like to do? And poetry, it went back to poetry, and I found that poetry was actually something I really like to do. And Tanya, she got me into contact with UK Unsigned. UK, Tanya was working in Tooting Harbour, and I remember I went and I done UK Unsigned, and I think I got to like a semi-final. But when I realized that I can actually potentially make something of this thing rather than it be a hobby, that's when I started to invest more into it. Then I remember Tanya rang me. This was like fast forward in 2016. She rang me and she was like, "Oh, I've just seen this course. Um, they're looking for spoken word artists. They're looking for this. They're looking for that. They're looking for all the creatives. I think it will be very beneficial for you, and whatnot." And I applied for the course, and it was a performance and creative enterprise at the GuildHall School of Music and Drama.
Right, yeah.
And I didn't know if I would get through, because I was just like, I haven't been, after I left college, university was not in my vision at all. And so we applied, we filled out the form together, we applied, and surprisingly, they got back to me and they said, "Okay, we're holding auditions, come at this time that day," and everything. And I remember I went, and I think overall there was over 400 applicants, and they had to narrow it down to 200 and narrow it down to 50, and then from 50 they had to keep narrowing it down. And I was one of the lucky 12.
Wow.
I was one of the lucky 12 on a conditional offer. And the conditional offer was that I had to write an essay about identity. So I remember I was like, I got through. I got through to the auditions. And I remember I said, "Tan, I've got to write this essay." But what was so funny about writing the essay about identity was that what Tia teaches, they go by this, they have a curriculum called the 7 Women, or the 7 Coloured Girls. And it's confidence, belief, aspiration, self-worth, self-esteem, self-respect, and identity was one of them. So it was like, I felt like everything was just aligning at the time. I was just like, wow, I'm in Tia, I'm learning about these 7 attributes, these 7 coloured women. I'm learning about identity. I've just, applied for this grand university because it's one of the top in the UK.
Okay.
I get through and they want me to write about identity. So it's like wow. And I remember I'd done what I could, and Tanya said to me, "Before you submit your essay or whatever you've got to do," because I had to, within the essay, I had to also add an artistic portfolio. And at that time I had walked with Tanya, and Tanya had done a play in Catford Theatre and Fairfield Halls, which I was a part of. I was one of the poets, and I narrated for that. So I had that to add in there. I had UK Unsigned to add in there. She also had done fashion shows that I could add in there. And I remember she said, before you submit it, send it to me. And I remember I finished writing what I believed was best quality, but it actually wasn't. And I remember Tanya, I sent it to Tanya, and this was a day before, I think it was a couple hours before the deadline. And Tanya had spent the whole night restructuring all my work of the portfolio. And she was like, Jess, I didn't even sleep. I was like, are you being serious? I thought I thought I was only sending it to you for you to just skim read to check if there was any grammatical errors. But she said she was like, no, when they're looking for an essay, this is what they're looking for. Da, 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 da. And she, she went through everything. I think it was like 12 pages.
Wow.
And she went over it. She changed some stuff, and she submitted it for me. And I remember a week later when I got congratulations. You are now a student at da, 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 da. Please make sure you come in with this and this. And I was over the moon. Like, I'm going to the GuildHall School of Music and Drama. And when I said that everywhere I went, I was like, yeah, I'm a student at the GuildHall School of Music and Drama. Even up until this day, I thank Tanya, and I just call that name because it's like, I always think, me, like, who am I that I can get into such a school like that? Because even just being there, and I've been there, I'm in my final year now, but even just being there. And
how many years was the course?
3 years. So I applied 2016 to start September 2017. And just being there and knowing that whilst I was there were people, a lot of people came from like Brit school or drama schools already, where I didn't have any of that influence. So it was intimidating. Two, a lot of them were like, a lot of the people, not just in my class, but also around me, their parents are like in orchestras, and like they're jazz musicians or they're classical music players. And I'm just like, yeah, some of them are, they're born into that sort of silver spoon life.
Yeah.
They were born into that. And I was just like, no, I'm just a girl from East London.
Was there much black people there as well?
No, not
really?
very. Do you know what? Actually, there were black people there, but there's few black people. But in my class, surprisingly, there's me, Cleo, Andre, Remy. There's like 5 of us. There's five black people in my class, which was a shock.
Yeah, what size was your class?
So my class is small. It's a very small class. At the time, there were 12 students in all, but some people got kicked out. Some people were like, they couldn't take the pressure, couldn't stand the heat.
Wow.
Some, it wasn't for them. So now, and so then it dropped to like 8, but then a lot of the year before me intermitted, so they're now in my year. So some people that were in the year 3 are now redoing a year because some, life, finances, some people, like, things happened in life where it caused them not to continue, so they just intermitted into my year. So now we have, I believe there's 10 people. But what was so amazing was that the course catered to my craft, it catered to my poetry. So how they done it was that we learn about the enterprise of performing arts. So that's wanting to put on your own show, writing proposals, writing for residency. Those are the main. But then we have to pick hours. We had to pick 3 craft options. So my 3 craft options were spoken word poetry, poetry itself, and drumming. I always wanted to learn how to play the drums. For some reason, I just wanted to learn how to play the drums. So the first year I picked spoken word, devising theatre, and poetry. The second year I stayed with poetry, spoken word, and drumming, and this year I've continued it. And we get a number of, how many hours? I think 36 hours throughout the term.
It's a full-time
And
course.
yeah. So we've got to sort of make up the hours. And it's been challenging, so challenging, but it has made me sort of a better poet, because there were things that I didn't know. So like things like cadence, things like the poetic devices, like alliteration and all of that, rhyming, the difference between spoken word and poetry, being a performance poet and a page poet. Not just that, I didn't know that there was a whole community of poets. I remember I started an Instagram and I was thinking, right, I'm going to start this Instagram, this poetry Insta, but who am I really going to follow that's a poet? Because I didn't follow poets. I didn't want to follow poets because I also didn't want to fall into this trap of sounding like another poet. Because I feel like with not all poets, but the poets that I saw then, or the English poets that I saw then, they were trying to be American. So it was like birds in the sky, 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 and I hated that poetry. I hated that poetry. I'm actually a poet that doesn't like poetry, because there's some sort of things that I just don't do. So I hated that whole echoey poetry, or poetry that didn't make sound sense. Yeah, that style, like that whole the bird flew high but it dropped and the sky was blue. It just doesn't make, like, you just get lost. That poetry, it just turned me off. I did not like it. And I didn't want to look at artists that done that, and then I fall into that trap. I always wanted to stay true to my voice, stay true to what I knew. And that's something that like, that's my integrity, like staying true to my true voice, what I sound like, not trying to be like. So even now I still struggle to listen to other poets. So I've now found this whole poetry community
on Instagram,
in November on Instagram. I started going to open mic nights, which I didn't know existed as well. So in December 2000 and I believe 2018, I done my first open mic at the Vortex in Streatham Hideaway with Floetry. She's part of
Floetry,
yeah.
Yeah, because
So
we found out that she done like she hosted the night, didn't she?
yeah, she hosts nights
Same.
in Streatham Hideaway.
I think that was with
So
we spoke with Mock
with Mo.
and M
Like, so I
Arts.
went there and I met all these great other artists, these great poets, and I was like, wow, there's actually a community. And I just, I started following them. I spoke to them and I was like, I'm a new poet. And, I went there. They showed me real support, showed me real love. And then I started to search for other poets, not poets, but open mic nights. And one thing that I'd said in that time was that I wasn't going to rely on other people. So that meant I'm not going to wait on other people for me to push to do what I want to do.
To move forward and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, to move forward. Because a lot of the time I found that I was waiting. I would message, oh, let's go. And people would just be like, sorry, I'm not going. So that meant I wasn't going to go. Then I thought, you know what, sometimes do things by yourself. And just that simple, like, change of mind pushed me to, go to open mics by myself, sit there by myself, listen to other people. And it just opened. One, it opened my mind. One, it inspired me to do more, to write more. And then you just get seen, and people want you here and there. So it became a thing where people started asking me to come to their open
You
mics.
became the scene.
I became, it's like everything just, like the everything flipped over. Like no longer was it me seeking to be a part of something, but people wanted me to be a part of their things. People wanted me to feature at their shows. And I was like, wow, is it really happening for me? Like, and it happened in such a short space of time as well.
Well, not
Because
really. All that
to
work
me,
that you were
I'm
doing
still,
up into it.
yeah,
And then that was
to
your moment, I
me,
guess.
yeah, to me, I was just like, I'm just this new artist that's on the scene. Like, I'm new, so I didn't know that. I didn't know how it went. I didn't know how it went. I just didn't know how it went. I didn't know how it went. So
So from
when
uni,
people,
oh yeah, go on, sorry.
yeah, so from uni, I'm seeking to be a part of these open mics. Like, hi, my name's Jessica, Poetess Jess, and I'm a spoken word artist. I'm new to the scene. Da, 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 da. Am I able to perform? That's what I had a draft saved in my
Your
notes. Yeah,
Yeah,
elevator
there
pitch.
is.
yeah. I had this one draft that I would just send to the different open mic nights, and people were like, yeah. And what it is that a lot of the spoken word artists that are in their prime now, they still go to these open mics, and it's like people. You had people that had their own shows also go to other open mic nights. So I remember when I had done Flow, um, about two people came up to me and they were like, "Oh, hi, my name's so and so. Yeah, I really liked what you done. Check me out on Instagram, or let's connect, let's network." And I'm a person, I do not know how to network. I'm still learning at my big old age, yeah. But because I was never exposed to things like this, or I always sort of hid behind somebody else, when I went out by myself, I found it kind of awkward because I didn't know. Am I supposed to sell myself, or am I supposed to stay humble? It was balancing being humble but also selling yourself at the same time. And so I remember I would use this one draft hire, da, 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 da. And then within a matter of months, um, what people would do was people would record me, and then they would put it on their social media. And that meant other people would see it. And then other people would add me, "Oh, hi, I saw this, da, 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 da." And then I moved from, being just an open mic, somebody to do open mic, to being a featured open mic where people were actually now paying me. Then
Get
I
it,
thought,
girl.
wow, you can get paid for this. You actually
It's
get
happening.
paid for words, for speaking. And I remember in uni, they'd be like, when they heard me do spoken word, they would be like, "Jess, I don't know what it is, but you sound like you could be a motivational speaker. Like, you need to look into that." Then I thought to myself, okay, how can I now use my spoken word to motivate others? So then I just started to change the narrative of my spoken word. Like, instead of me using it to express what I see or what I observe, let me use it to motivate other people. And I remember I wrote this poem, "Before You Quit, Remember Why You Started." And I remember I'd done it at what is it called? Premier Poetry. And from that one night, that poem, it's like the poem blew overnight. And I got into contact with another guy, another poet. He messaged me on Instagram, Terrell Lewis. And he messaged me on Instagram, and he was like, "Oh, so and so put me in contact with you." And he was like, "I'm having an open mic, or I'm having an event at the W Hotel, and I would like you to be a part of it." So I was like, "Okay, cool, fine, yeah, I'm coming." Now, I didn't know that the W Hotel was this posh, prestige place. So it was just so prestige. I was like, whoa. And how I was dressed and where it was, I was like, whoa. And I remember I went and I done this poem, "Before You Quit." And who happened to be in the audience?
Who?
Kojo, the comedian.
Aye.
I was like, and I remember Kojo was at the back. He was just like, wheel it. No, come again. It was mine. Like, it blew my mind. I didn't even know that he was there. And then after the show, he came up to me and he was like, I really loved what you done. You are amazing. In October, that was 2019. That was August 2019, and it was like, I do this event called the Black Magic Awards, and I would like for you to be a part of the spoken word cipher. So I was like, wow, me. So I didn't say anything to anybody because obviously, sometimes I'm not saying not to say that he was lying, but
Yeah.
I needed it to be
real. Just
confirmed.
in
I
case.
needed confirmation. Like, I needed that in a week's time, you're going to come back to me. So he added me on Instagram. And I remember I didn't say anything to no one. And he done a video. He even done a video where he was bigging me up and he was like, yeah, we're getting her on this. We're getting her on that. And maybe 2 weeks later, he was like, he inboxed me and he was like, I need a picture of you for the Black Magic Awards poster. And I was like, oh my days, it's actually happening. And then I sent him the picture. I sent him my email address and everything. And then I remember the picture came out with the flyer and I posted it. And then it's like, it went viral within my family because everyone was like, oh my days. So then I done the Black Magic Awards and it was like
Magic.
the best thing. That inspired me more because it was Black people being awarded for their businesses, their creativity.
Black
It was
excellence.
just so inspiring to just see representation of Black people being honored because you don't get it all the time. So that inspired me to like, nah, I want to win this award. Do you know what I mean? So in that, there was a lot of people in the audience, a lot of influencers, and in that, I got picked to be a part of Mobo's talent. So Kanye King was there, and then
picture on your Instagram.
she then, how did it even work? So, all right, so because of Terrell and another young man, Mr. Reed, who's also a phenomenal poet, they saw us three and they at the Black Magic Awards and was like, yeah, we want to put these three together. So what they done was they contacted, I think, Kojo contacted Terrell, and Terrell contacted me and said, Jess, we've just given a big opportunity to perform at some corporate event for what was it? Some society. I can't remember the name of the society, but within that society, it was like Coca-Cola, IBM, O2, all of these big corporate events or networks that were celebrating their 60th birthdays. So, Cancer Research, and we were the entertainment. And I remember that time we had to write about being brave. And it was beyond me. It was beyond me. And then from there, we done another. Mobo's was like, okay, we're going to start working with you guys. You guys are now called the Wordsmiths. We're putting you together. And we started to do events for Mobo's under the Mobo's talent. We were the first spoken word group to perform under the name Mobo's talent. And I was obviously the first female, so I take pride in that.
Yeah.
And then, before the lockdown, we done a show for Essentra, and there we met like Stephen Fry.
Was that this year?
That was this year.
Okay, yeah.
That was in February. We met Stephen Fry. We met the CEO of Beats, and we played alongside a great I can't even remember his name. A great pianist, but he was phenomenal. We played beside an orchestra. It was amazing. It was just amazing. So in that short space of time from say in 2017 up until now, taking poetry real seriously, so many things have happened for me as an artist. I'm being recognized also just within churches, like so many conferences that I've done. I was supposed to perform at the big church day out, but this pandemic happened.
Yeah.
I was meant to perform so many different places.
But obviously, in light with what's happening now, obviously everything's all kind of cancelled or
Yeah, everything's
postponed.
cancelled, postponed. But yeah, I really just made a name for myself. I made a brand for myself within, just not just doing the Black Magic Awards, but I done stuff with Breenie Lee, the influencer. She had a show called Pep Talk,
Yeah.
and she was like, "Yeah, I want you to come and do some spoken word." So I went and done some spoken word for her, and then we met up a few weeks later. We just kept bucking, and she was like, "Yeah, I want you to do this." So things just started to just move,
Wow.
and although some things were not paid for, it did give me a platform for exposure.
No, absolutely. I mean,
And
that's really what being a
yeah,
performer is, isn't it? It's just like literally doing things that actually moves your career forward.
yeah, and it did, because at times I was just getting a bit upset though. I'm not gonna lie, I got
Because
upset because it was like,
there's bills to pay.
yeah, it was like
There's hair to be done.
exposure's not paying the bills. It's not paying for
Exposures.
sort of it's not paying. It's not paying for certain things that need to be paid for. But at the same time, I am grateful. Like, I don't take exposure for granted.
Yeah.
Because now when I look at, like, now I just see people just inbox me their poetry, like not even hi, my name's so and so. It's like the
Critique this
amount
for
of
me, please.
requests. It's like, can you take a look at this and tell me what you think? I have young girls like that. The poem that I spoke about before you quit, where young girls are just like, I've been listening to this every day. It's on replay. It's encouraged me. Some girl, I was on Link Up TV. I was on their Instagram, and I done that same poem, and some girl inboxed me. She's like, "I'm gonna play this to my mum. She's sick." It, like, things like that, and that is just like, wow, things that money can't buy. Just things that, like, just normal sort of things like that. It touches me differently.
So that's an amazing story. You talking about how you started to write up to now and literally putting in the work. Because that's really, to be honest, that's really how you manage to succeed so quickly. You put in the work, you put in the focus.
And stepping up by yourself.
Yeah,
not
and
waiting.
doing that by yourself as well. But now that's kind of been halted abruptly because of the situation that's happening now. Did you say that you're on your last year of study as well?
Yeah, I'm in my last
So
year, literally.
how does that work now? Now, are you still able to study, or is that completely stopped now? Now the lockdown and
So
everything.
so no, it's not. What has stopped is, so with my final year, um, the final sort of term, which is now the third and final term, is that we were supposed to put on a performance. So we're supposed to have a placement. So we're meant to write a thesis. We are meant to have a placement. We was meant to be in a placement and a final performance. The placement was meant to be between January and April, but that got stopped,
Is
obviously,
that like a work
because
experience type thing?
yeah,
Or
work experience.
See.
And the performance got, well, they're saying that it's going to now be September, October, but I don't know how, with how, China's now just got their second wave of coronavirus. I don't know how likely it is. So we was meant to be concentrating on that. So what we are doing now is we're just really focusing on the thesis, what can be handed in written. Like, so I'm just now focusing on the written part. The placement part, which had to be stopped, they are now trying to sort out an alternative of how that can be finished, and I think that's now going to be more research based. So I wanted to work with do poetry with women that have been incarcerated
Seen.
or vulnerable women.
Yeah.
Um, so now I believe I'll be looking at the research and the history of the women more. So I don't know the full details, as again, it's been postponed. And I only touched base with my tutor about it once, and they're still trying to finalize things. With the performance side, they're saying September, October. Not sure how likely that is, because we don't know how long social distancing is going to be for. So it's now really just my thesis and a portfolio, an artistic portfolio that needs to be handed in June, end of June. So that's just been my main focus, really.
And apart from obviously your studies as well, I mean, how are you also dealing with the lockdown now? We're literally past our second month now, and it's easing off now and everything. But obviously, as you just said, the second wave in China looks like it's kicking off, which could obviously spread a little bit of a panic throughout the world, and
Mm.
people might just feel maybe we should be on another lockdown duration for more. So, I mean, how has that affected your creativity and stuff? Are you still able to be creative and writing? Is it inspired you?
Yeah, this lockdown has been, to me, I don't know about for anybody else, but it's been the best thing ever.
Wow.
In terms of
Or in terms of, one, you kind of get to know you more, and not me personally, but I think me as an artist.
Scene.
So now I've been able to sit down and focus on writing poetry, what I want to write
Quality
about.
time that you probably wouldn't have done in other
Yeah,
circumstances.
I can now more. I I think, with Instagram being so instant, it's always like a pressure to always have content, like. And I think now I'm just being content with not putting out content. Do you know what I mean? It's just looking at Instagram in its fullness, in its entirety. Like, you don't have to. Now that I feel like I've got a name for myself, I don't have to put out content how I used to. Because before, I just felt like I had to keep putting out just to show people that I'm working and to build a name. But I feel like now that I've built that, sort of got that name, and people sort of know who I am. The other day, my mum I had a conversation with a girl who was a poet, and my mum was like, "Oh, yeah, my daughter's a poet, Poetess Jess." And the girl was like, "Oh my gosh, your daughter's Poetess Jess," and she was telling me that. So it was like, so now that I'm sort of being recognised, I'm able just to sit down and write poetry, um, write just more, understand and look at different poets, spend more time on writing this thesis, so spend more time with family, spend more time with my portfolio. I feel like it's not a rush no more. I can actually take time.
you can absorb it
So
and be present with it.
yeah, it's just taking time out. And when you're a creative and you have time, it's the best thing ever as well, because you
Definitely.
can take time to create.
Yeah.
It's not a rush.
Yeah. Do you ever get mind blocks when it comes to
Oh,
your writing?
that thing is. I had a conversation with my tutor, because I'm still doing like virtual one-to-ones. So I'm also in constant contact with my tutors, and I was speaking, and I've learned that it's not really writer's block. It's it's you just not thinking outside of the box.
Scene.
So I learned that whenever I write, it's not that I've got writer's blocks that I can't find the words to write. It's that I'm just looking within the box to write it in. Sometimes look outside of it. So I'm learning to look outside of the box, because writer's block was something that I struggled with, because how I write poetry, right? I don't write it I write it from the bottom to the top. So I start with the ending.
Okay.
I'll sing. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. I start with the ending and then I work my way up, or I start with the middle. I never start at the top, and it was always frustrating.
Sing.
Just like I just could never start a poem
That was
at the
always how
top.
you did
And
it.
yeah, and I remember when I spoke to my tutor, and he's a famous poet as well. And I gave him a line of where I had started from the bottom, and he said, "Why can that not be the top? Who says that's the bottom?" And that just shifted my whole mindset. I was like, that is so true. And now I'm just learning just to think outside of the box whenever I get stuck,
Sing.
or I'm learning to. Even now, I'm trying to write. Just before you called, I was looking at an instrumental because I want to put music. Not that I always want to do this, because I do believe it defeats the purpose of spoken word and poetry, putting music in it. But I wanted to write something, and I was like, where do I start? Where do I start? And I just said, all right, I just wrote down, "You're a queen." That's all I wrote down. And I said to myself, is this the bottom? Is this the middle? Is this the top? So now I'm just jotting ideas around, what do I want to write about "You're a Queen." So it's just giving me time to just
Think outside the box, as you say.
think outside the box
Yeah.
and structure my writing. It's been amazing.
Same.
It's absolutely been amazing for me.
Same.
Discover the creative
Hard that
process.
I've not been able to proper like create, performing, but then people are doing like these IG lives, and I'm still sharing, just not like naturally, physically,
Yeah.
yeah, with
Virtually,
a
yeah.
live audience. So
Okay.
virtually,
Yeah.
I'm. But it's been good. It's been good. I've been to Canada from my house. I've been to
Travel around the world.
Oakland from my house. Do you know what I mean? I've performed at all of these different events. I've been to
Okay,
Jamaica
so
from my
virtual events.
house. So yeah,
That's
it's
great.
it's
Speaking of events, let's talk
Yeah,
about Black Minds Matter now, actually.
yeah. So I mean, that's where I actually first saw you as well. Was at the Black Minds Matters conference and Healing Our Broken Village, and you were doing some
Powerful stuff, man.
yeah, some powerful performances with some of the Black Minds Matters members as well. So you could tell us about. I'm sure it's probably through Tanya, maybe that you got involved with it. But if you could tell us about your journey with Black Minds Matters, your contributions, and what you think about Black Minds Matters as a movement and what they're doing for young people.
So yes, Black Minds Matter, amazing, amazing, amazing. So yes, through Tanya is actually the plug. She is the link. That woman is amazing. So yeah, Tanya, she got in her, and she works with Malik, and I believe they were putting on I'm trying to remember my first encounter with Black Minds Matter. They were putting on
They
like a
do
sort of
workshops
show,
and things like that
or
as well.
work
So I don't
through
know which
workshops,
part you
yeah.
came in.
And she wanted me to come because they wanted a spoken word piece.
Yes.
And with Tanya, one thing that I can say with her is, wherever she believes spoken word is sort of needed or creative is needed, she's gonna make sure it happens, sort of thing. And she was like, "Jess, yo, this is what's happening. We're doing this thing. Can I come?" So I came to the workshops that you had in I believe it was Springfield.
Yeah, Springfield,
Yeah, I
St. George's.
went. And I just went there just to observe, to see what they were doing. Um, didn't really know that I was actually gonna be like a part of like the leading sort of program. I just thought I was just there to help and assist those that wanted to be. I didn't know that I was actually going to be a part of it. I just thought I was just going to assist some people that probably wanted to do poetry. Um, and I remember I sat and they were taking notes about they wanted a past, present, and future. And I just remember just being there and all of these young people. One, it was just amazing to see how many young people felt about mental health. How many people were struggling with mental health also. It was it was warming to know that they cared so much, and it was also touching to see that a lot of the young people struggled with it also. That was a thing that was like, wow. And in my mind, I was thinking, I wonder how many of these young people have actually sat and spoken with each other and said, "This is what I'm going through." Because what I find is within, like, especially the Black community, it's a pride thing to sort of say, I'm depressed."
Yeah.
You don't want to know. You don't want people to know that you're
It's
depressed.
kind of taboo, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a taboo. We want people to know that we sort of got it all together, sort of thing. So it was just surprising and heartwarming at the same time, just to see that, wow, so many young people, and this is what they felt about it. And then not just that, so many young people. Um, Actually, my first encounter wasn't at Springfield. They were doing. Just as I'm speaking to you, it was at NTA Church. They were having this. They were having something at NTA.
Was
They were
that the
having a
Heal Our
com.
Broken Village? Heal Our
Yeah, they were
Broken
having
Village
a
conference.
heel. Yeah, bro, that's what they were having. And leading up to that time, they were having they were meeting at the church. What they were doing is that they needed young people to, I wouldn't say debate, but they needed young people to sort of talk about what they were going through. And it wasn't for a conference. I think it was something completely different. But we were talking about the conference, also the Healing Our Broken Village. But what they needed to do was to get young people to speak about. Yeah, they wanted to put Black Minds Matter together. First of all, this is how it started. They wanted to put it together, and what they needed was the voices of the young people to talk about what they were going through and growing up.
Same.
And they wanted to put a scheme in place, like a scheme in place where over the course of the scheme, where they come and they do these workshops, and that's how it became. So it was the making of Black Lives Matter.
Black Minds
That's where,
Matter.
yeah, it was the making. They were putting that. It's when they were putting it together. That's
Yes.
where my first encounter, being
Okay. You were
part
there
of
at the
the
conception of
creation.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the
Same.
concept, and how they wanted to put a scheme in place or workshops in place where women with kids or counseling sessions, and we were just talking about. People were talking about their culture, and I remember Jeffrey was speaking about, his dad passing away and him having to step up in his culture to be like sort of like the man of the house. And they were talking about the different cultures within the Caribbean, and children must be seen and not heard. And that was like my first encounter.
Same.
And then after that, they Black Minds Matter was created, and then you started having your workshops in Springfield. And I remember I came along, and they wanted the past, present, and future, and just to hear, we spoke about the slavery and what's happening in the culture, the Black culture today, and what they wanted it to be like in the future. And I believe it is an amazing platform for young people that care about mental health, because it gives you the opportunity to see representation of people like you going through the same thing as you do. Because I found that when we were having these conversations, a lot of the people were there, and that were the young people that were there were able to say, "Oh my gosh, yeah, oh my gosh, I thought it was just my family that done that." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was the beautiful thing, and eyes lit up just to know that they had somebody that they could relate to. So it's not just relating, but it's representation. It's also being educated about mental health and the difference between mental health and illness, that everyone suffers with mental health. Understanding why it gets to a point where Black people are 10 times more to be sectioned than white people. And it's very inspirational, because when you hold these conferences and you see, like the last conference that I went to, you just saw black educated people, black people that knew what they were talking about, and understanding why we are in the position that we are in, and learning how to change the narrative. Now, I was never ever like, not to say that I didn't care for mental health or I wasn't big on mental health, but I was one of those, like, it wasn't really an interest that I had in. So I remember when Tanya was talking to me about it and Malik was speaking about it, and I questioned myself. I was like, is this something that I want to be a part of? Like, because one of my things was, I want to be a part of things that I sort of have a passion for, like that I know that, yeah. But what I can say is that from being a part of the journey with Black Minds Matter, it has opened me, like how I before I used to say, like, see people that committed suicide as selfish people, because, like, why would you want to put your family through that? Da, 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 da. But understanding why people go through what they go through, and learning that this is actually a taboo that needs to be spoken of, especially in black churches. Not everything is, let me come and let me pray for you. Maybe let me pray with you and understand you a bit more. Understanding the root and the core of where your issues derived from. Because a lot of black people don't want to speak about where their issue stems from.
Yeah.
And a lot of the issues stem from parents, and upbringing. Understanding the many different faces of absent fathers. A lot of within the black community, absent fathers is, oh yeah, your dad's just gone to the shop. But sometimes it's your dad can be living with you and still be absent, not active in your life. The role of absent mothers, like just things like that. It's just opened my eyes and made me compassionate more towards people. Like, don't be so quick, not to judge, but to have an opinion on other people's lives when you don't really understand their walk and their journey. And as living in a generation where we have Instagram and all of these things, where influencers are now a job and things like that, and you only sort of seeing the very green side of social media, where people are putting up pictures, but a lot of the people that put up these pictures or creating this facade are actually going through. So just understanding and being more lenient as well, offering your hand is not, or just simply asking somebody, are you okay? Just texting those words, what it can do for a person. Even if it's not your intent to have a full-blown conversation with them, but just to reach out, that is so important. So being a part of Black Minds Matter and being a part of the journey has really just given me more compassion. It's opened my eyes. It's made me a bit more relatable as well, and open to say, oh, maybe you did have a little bit of depression, or maybe it's this. And if I do feel like one day I don't want to get out of my bed, questioning why I don't want to get out of my bed, why I don't want to get out, what has happened? What's happened from last night to now? Do you know what I mean? Understanding triggers and where your triggers are and where they came from. And being a part of the journey has also been beautiful, because you just see people like Amina, who, you know, I remember when I first had an encounter with Amina, where, like, she had so much anger, everything, she would get frustrated so quick. And then just seeing the change where she now takes time out for herself. I remember she was one of the groups that we had in the conference, the last conference that we held. She was part of my group, and I remember her. She was getting frustrated, but in her frustration, instead of her making it known to everybody, she just took time out. And like, I really was like, wow, that's such a big step. And then she came back and she explained herself after we had our little debrief. But just knowing that you can see changes in people. Another young person, Noah. I remember my first encounter with him was when we were looking for like the creative side, where we were showcasing like the music and the spoken word. And in the beginning, he said that he wanted to do something, and he played his song. But what he done was he walked out. So he played it, but he walked out, and he didn't want us, like, it's like he didn't want us to see his reaction.
Yeah.
And he didn't come back in until the song had finished. And then he came in and everyone congratulated, but he was in such an awkward state that he didn't know how to take and receive compliments. And then the day of the show, how he just he went from a guy that didn't want to be seen to now publicly wanting to now be the greatest. That's what his song was about. And then I remember when I went on my placement, I done a placement with Providence, and I sat on the panel for a show that they were doing, and he was part of the show, and I had to just give back feedback. And to know that this guy went from not wanting to be seen to being seen, now wanting to be part of this big community of music, it was so touching. And I had to say, guys, I know this is off topic to them, but I know Noah from here, and just to see him now, but just to see that it has actually changed people's lives for the better, not for the worse, is just amazing. So like the work that they are doing, the encouragement, and just allowing young people to be a part of something, because I feel like with this generation, they just want to be a part of something. And allowing them to take lead also is fascinating. It is phenomenal. And it gets other young people interested. It's like a domino effect, because you see one young person doing it, it's like, oh, I want to do it too. It's like but everyone wants to be a part of it. So I believe that in the future, it will be such a grand thing. And especially when you're saying to people, oh, they're offering us X amount to do this and to do that, people, they're just going to be on it. So it's amazing. It's been an amazing journey, and it's sad to know that we're in a pandemic where people can't meet up again how they would like to, because I believe that they were doing a show in April.
Yeah, they're supposed to do a show in April,
And I wanted to be a part of that. And it was like, Jess, can you be a part of it? We want Moke as well. We want so and so, because I got a few artists on board in the last one. It's just been an incredible journey, and just to see where it was and where it's come to, knowing that so many young people were just a part of it. It's amazing.
That's good. That's amazing. I mean, like, again, thank you for coming on and speaking about your story. I mean, like, you've explained it so eloquently as well, and being able to tell us basically your beginnings to where we are now and stuff like that, and how much of an inspiration you are becoming as well, which is actually, you don't really get a lot of artists now, basically, that look at the importance of spreading good vibes with their art, you know what I mean, and stuff like that, and the fact that you're doing it in a natural way and stuff. Big kudos to you. So again, thanks for coming on the show. And just one last question before you go as well, in light of obviously what's been happening around the world now and stuff, and obviously the way things are at the moment now, has that changed your perspective on how you view the world now, how you see things, or are you more or less still just more the same kind of just as before?
Just the
Or, or has things changed for you?
Yeah, my perspective has changed, because it's like now, tomorrow is not promised. just a lot of things that we took for granted, just like being able to just breathe,
Yeah.
Open your eyes. Even when I had symptoms of COVID, it was just the scariest thing ever.
Wow.
It
So
was
tell us
so
about
scary.
tell us what did you have? I mean, you said you had symptoms.
So I remember it was March. I even remember the date, March 16th. And I had a virtual lesson, and I was meant to go in, and then I got an email saying that lessons cancelled. We're going to have it on Zoom. So I said, okay, let me go to my aunt's house as I'm up. Let me just go to my aunt's. And I remember I went to my aunt's, and I went to my aunt's because she had broken her leg and she snapped her Achilles tendon. So I just went just in case I needed to go Sainsbury's for her and come back. I remember I went there early in the morning and I was fine. I was all right. Like I said, I went Sainsbury's for her. I went and I got something to eat and I came back home. I came back to her house. I went online to do my lesson around, say, 12. And I just started to feel lightheaded. And I remember one of my friends, he private messaged me on the Zoom chat and he was like, Jess, are you all right? I was like, no, I feel a bit lightheaded. And that was that. I spoke to my tutor and I said, do you know what? I'm going to have to go. I'm not feeling too well. Anyway, after the Zoom, I'm not a person that naps during the day. I don't nap. For me to nap during the day, I must be really tired or unwell. And I remember I napped. I took a long nap. I didn't know how long it was. I just remember closing my eyes and waking up in darkness.
Yeah.
And when I woke up, I was just like, nah. And I remember I had to drive home, and I would have stayed there, but the only reason why I had to drive home was because I had some tablets for my brother. Well, my aunt had tablets for my brother that I had to give to him, and she had a few things, so I had to drive home. And I was thinking to myself, how am I going to drive home? And I remember just getting in my car and I was praying. I was like, Lord, please just let me get home safe. Anyway, I got home and I just fell asleep on the chair. And then I woke up in the middle of the night and I went to my bed. The next morning, or the next day rather, I couldn't stay up. I couldn't stay awake. I couldn't stay awake for longer than 5 minutes. Didn't know what was wrong with me. The day after that, so after a day of sleeping, the next day, I woke up, I had aches and pains. I didn't know what was wrong with me. Aches and pains. I couldn't taste and I couldn't smell. But at the time, those were not symptoms. It was just shortage of breath, temperature, and coughing. And I didn't have coughing. I just had temperature, and I didn't have shortage of breath. I just had the temperature.
Same.
I couldn't eat. It was just, and the only time that I ever felt really, really like refreshed was when I was in a hot bath or a hot shower. And I remember being in the shower, and I would be in the shower for so long because that was the only time I felt revived. And I thought to myself, oh yeah, I feel good. I feel like I can face the day. But every time that the heat wore off, I was just feeling sick again, and I was just not well. And I remember just being in my bed, not being able to move. And at one point, my brother's girlfriend, she sent me a message of not being able to taste or smell was part of the symptoms. I was like, oh, and she sent me something of a vlog of a girl saying that she wasn't able to smell and all of that. So I got scared. And I remember I just kept praying, and I was like, God, please, please.
Yeah.
Please, 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 please. And I remember my mum coming into my room and was like, what kind of sickness is this? Because we just couldn't grasp it. We didn't know what it was.
So how long did you actually have it for? Do you know?
Maybe, so that was on the 16th. Over a week. Over a week, I was feeling it. I couldn't physically get up out of the bed and all of that jazz. And then when I could, maybe it took another week and a bit for me to taste again, to eat again, and to smell again. So I lost weight. I went down to, I was 60 kg and I went down to 54.
Oh, that's quite a bit. So
Yeah.
you were actually sick. Was it
Yeah.
during the whole time it stayed the same, or did it ease off? And how did you have to go
It eased
in
off.
and get tested, or?
No, I didn't, because you know what it was? Because the symptoms that I was having were not symptoms that they said were right. Because remember, they were only saying, if you have this and you have that.
Yeah, this was early, wasn't it?
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was early. So it wasn't,
It's just a stay
we
home.
didn't think anything of it. But I was saying, when my brother's girlfriend was sending me those videos, I was like, oh, Lord, please, 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 I don't want to have, because the way how people were just dying, I was like, God, I am not prepared. I was just, it wasn't the one. It wasn't, and I got better, but it was,
Yeah, that was a little scared there, boy.
Yeah, scary.
So you got better anyway and stuff, and
I got better.
and so that obviously, now when I ask you about your change of perspective, you've got more reason now to have a different outlook, because obviously you've had some symptoms, and stuff like that. So how do you view things now? Now we're kind of like 2 months into it and stuff, and slightly easing out. How do you look on things now?
I'm more grateful for life. I've been taking staying at home very seriously. I think I went to do somebody's hair, my friend, but other than that, I hadn't been anywhere apart from maybe to the shop and back, because I just taken that risk. But with the whole perspective of life, it's just, you've got to give thanks every day. You have to be grateful and don't take for granted the people that you have around you, friends, family. I know somebody, my cousin lost her dad and her grandmother within days of each other. So I think it's just being totally grateful. When I look at the designer that I have, it's not even worth it. Some things are just not worth it. The shoes and the buying expensive stuff, it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I think priorities change, don't they?
Priorities change. You don't need to, just to know that you're in good health is amazing. A lot of things, just buying. So I knew that I was I wouldn't say materialistic, but I liked nice things.
Yeah. So as we all do, yeah.
So and now I question, why am I buying it? Do I need it? Even though a lot of the things I've got now, I'm like, half of these things, I'm like, waste of money. Just certain things, it's not necessary, man. Life is too precious.
So it's caused you to reflect on everything now. So that's a good thing as well.
That's a good thing. So, okay, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much for sharing that wealth of stories. As you said, we didn't even have to ask you much. You gave us so much information.
Gave us
so
the
that was
whole
great.
deal, man. That's good. Yeah.
And you do have your poetry online as well. So from someone from the GuildHall who is award-winning and everything else. And obviously you've got Catching Bodies for the Body, and you've got your other you've got lots of things. Well, you've got your community and everything that you're building up and everything like that as well. So if you could give people your social media handles, whatever, so they can come and check you out and keep informed with your journey, that'd be great.
So you can find me at Poetess Jess Official. All you have to type in is Poetess Jess. I believe I am the only Poetess Jess.
Yeah, she's the only one.
I don't say that to boast, but I think I thought, because even when I was created the whole name,
yes,
I had to look like, am I the only person that's called Poetess Jess? But I even do Google searches now on a regular basis just to make sure.
Yeah,
when
that's good.
people type in Poetess Jess, what do they see? And I come up. So
that's good.
Poetess Jess Official. That's also, if you type that in on Facebook. Although I'm not very active on Facebook. I'm more active on Instagram. I am putting on a Zoom event, spoken word event, for next month. So yeah, you can keep your eye out on that. The date hasn't been released. I don't know the date. I'm just trying to organise some things, get a few people. So I will be sure to tag you guys in it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you for having me.
No
Yes,
problem,
thank
man.
you for sharing your time. And I'm glad that everything ended well. And
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. You're in good health now, you're in good spirits, and you said that this has actually worked really well in your favour as well, so thank you.
Yeah, 100%.
Keep up the good work, man.
Thank you
Keep
so
up the
much.
good work.
All right, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll
You too,
hear
guys.
you soon, and all the best with that event that's coming up.
All right. Thank
Okay,
you.
take care, babe.
Cheers.
All right.
Thanks, Jess.
Bye.
Bye. So that was Poetess Jess. So if you want to go and check her out, we'll leave all those contact details down below. And yes, I hope you guys found value in that. If you will have any feedback, tips, or experiences that you yourself want to share, then please leave us a comment down below. If you want to email us, you can do so on info@blackmindsmatter.co.uk. You can also go and check out the website where you can sign up to the newsletter, and there's a lot of great resources in there, as well as when the next podcast show is going to be out. That's on www.blackmindsmatter.co.uk. If you want to find out the latest government healthcare guidelines, then please check out www.gov.uk or www.wandsworth.gov.uk. If you found value in this, please do share it with somebody else. Like, share, and subscribe. We will catch you guys on the next podcast. Thank you. Be safe, be well, and we'll see you soon. You're listening to the Black Minds Matters podcast in association with WCEN.